grandfather worked for Bird and Son as well as my dad did, probably when he was younger. We were brought up in Walpole. I'm one of eight. We spent a lot of time in East Walpole with the Groden family, which is one of 15. And we used to swim in the cement pond here and flew a lot of kites, so it was a lot of fun here. And, I got a chance to bring my youngest daughter. She did crossover from Brownies to Girl Scouts on the bridge over here. We moved to the Cape 20 years ago, so it's funny how many memories you have of a place like this. My grandfather played on the Bird baseball team. It was an amateur league. From what I understand, I never got the chance to watch him. I understand he was very good. He was called Bullet. He was a third baseman. And all the funding for around here in that particular league, I think, was done by Bird. And it was one step down from professional baseball. So it's always kind of interesting to hear that type of thing. Thanks.
Hi.
What's your name? How are you related to Francis William Bird?
I'm Emily Gilbert. I am Frank Phillips's granddaughter, and Francis William Bird was his grandfather. So I think that's my great-great-grandfather. Yeah.
And what does this park mean to you?
It means a lot for our family, especially growing up in Massachusetts, to be able to visit.
As the grandson of Francis William Bird, I want to say how much the park means to us and all the extended Bird family, and how much we appreciate the trustees' reservations' work to maintain the beautiful landscape that it is. Really gorgeous. And how much the community cares so much for it, and particularly seeing Mike White and his wife Sue, who have invested so generously in the park and that he grew up in and loved so much. Our family, represented here by so many cousins who came from around the country for this celebration. This park represents to us the 200-year legacy of the Bird family here in Walpole. George Bird began making paper on the banks of the Neponset River in 1795, settled here in Walpole in 1805. His descendants expanded the operation, making shoe boxes for the shoe industry. And at the end of the 19th century, Charles Sumner Bird invented the first manufacturing of the asphalt shingle. But what I think is most impressive was Charles Sumner Bird's commitment to his workers. He led the way nationally to go from a grueling 12-hour shift to an 8-hour shift without any pay cut, and was among the few who didn't cut back the salaries. He provided his workers with health benefits, funds for housing, and he created recreational fields for workers and so much more. He despised factory owners who profited from child labor. Billy Bird, as he was known in the family, Billy, died suddenly from pneumonia in August 1918 at the age of 36 after a routine procedure at MGH. It was a huge blow to his family. It cut short a very promising career that began fresh out of Harvard Law School as a trust-busting young federal prosecutor in New York City and as a political leader in Teddy Roosevelt's Progressive Party movement, while also making headlines battling the corrupt New York City political machines. Then coming back to Massachusetts as a Boston newspaper publisher in 1917, and his final role as a future leader of Bird and Son. His sudden death was devastating to his wife, Marjorie, and their 3 young children, Mary, Anne, and Francis. As it was also to his parents, Charles Sumner Bird and Anna, all who could never really recover from the loss of their son, husband, and father. But his parents realized there was no better way to express the family grief than to take this land they owned here, originally designated to provide homes for Bird Son employees, and create a beautiful landscaped park that company workers and neighbors could enjoy. It was a perfect way to deal with their grief, envisioning that it would provide something very special for the people who made the Bird Company such a success. Those working on the grueling factory front lines and to those managing the company. And it also helped to keep secure Walpole as a very vibrant community, and it has. This was a vision of Charles Sumner Bird and his wife Anna, and to this day, 100 years later, the park thrives, and much thanks to the trustees and its supporters, like the Friends of Bird Park. I knew Billy's parents, his wife, and his children would be thrilled to know the park now is still the vibrant place they envisioned and remained all these years such an important part of this community.
My grandfather worked for Bird and Son. I didn't know half the history, not even a tenth of the history that I find when I can read the signs and start to see some of what was accomplished by Billy Bird, but more than that, the Bird family, and especially Bird and Son, which meant so much to our family. So, just a couple words from my side. My dad was Tom White, grew up right over there on Rhodes Avenue. My wife's mother was Evelyn Modick and grew right over there, grew up on Pleasant Street. So for them, this was part of their community. I grew up on Common Street with my 7 brothers and sisters, and my wife grew up on South Street. So we're old-time Walpole folks, even though we haven't lived in Walpole in many, many years. Three dimensions. First and foremost, I think, is the testament to Charles and Anna Bird for their foresight and their generosity. They were way ahead of their times in so many ways. When I think about it as somebody who worked in business as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, they were way ahead of thinking about a company and its stakeholders, whether they were the workers or the community, as an integral part of the whole ecosystem and the responsibility that they took for both their workers and the community, in addition to making a profit for the owners. They also, I think, had an incredible commitment to public parks and the environment way before that was popular or even understood. And I think that too shows the foresight and the ability to think in a visionary way about the future that really stands the test of time. Well, she was in his short life. But as a small child, I used a swing set and slides that used to be located off of Walcott Avenue, where my grandparents lived. As I got older, I rode my bike through every inch of this park. I played tennis a few times, and I even swam in the old swimming pool before it was removed. And by the way, after my dad died at a very young age of 50, my mom had one thing she wanted. She wanted a family photo of the 8 kids. They selected a meadow right over here near Rhodes Ave to take that photo. Family. But I can only say thank you to the Bird family for their generosity in setting these 89 acres apart for us to all enjoy. And finally, Marguerite, I'm going to introduce you. Marguerite Krupp was a passionate volunteer with the Friends of Bird Park and is responsible for all of the stuff you see in the little picnic area and some
At
of the
the end
signage
of
and
this
the
tour,
stories that were put.
you are welcome to imbibe again at the end. But before we head off on the tour, we're hoping to get a photo with everyone, which I know is very difficult. On stage.
Why it's on Apple TV.
We understand. I think one is Bird Family and one is the whole.
Hi. What was Francis William Byrd to you? How are you related?
He is my great grandfather, I believe.
Oh, cool. What does this park mean to you?
It means everything to me. It's just my aunt Ann Bird. She brought me here with a feeling of pride because she loved nature. She loved birds. But I didn't realize how much is involved. You know, these things don't just happen without.
Look it on the wall. This is the person that put the whole right here.
How about a waving? Turn of the century, 19th into the 20th, and Walpole is changing rapidly from an agricultural community to an industrial one. From 1900 to 1910, the foreign-born population of this town has increased about 250%. You do not have the infrastructure, the housing to accommodate that increase. Now the Bird family, the Bird company, they are employing some of these new folks to the area. And the Bird family really wants to improve the life of its employees and really the community broadly. So, like Frank gave a great example in stuff that's directly related to work, the Bird family lowered the working hour from 12 hours to 8, and again without reducing the salary, which was a big deal. And they also help their employees more generally in finding housing, in being able to buy those homes. The health, I mean, that Bird, where the tavern was and the Bird, that was a dentist. And there are folks I met here that still went to that dentist before it burned down. The Bird family is also dedicated to improving the lives of the community. For example, Charles Sumner Bird Jr., so this is Anna and Charles' son, he headed up the Civic Improvement Committee, and this committee happened to invite a gentleman by the name of John Nolan to come speak. And John Nolan was trained as a landscape architect under Olmsted, but he became a city planner, a town planner, and that was a whole new field. And he became a pioneer in this field. And he believed that you could design spaces, especially in industrial communities like Walpole, you could design spaces that incorporated his knowledge of landscape architecture to create spaces that improved the lives of the people that lived there. And that really spoke to the Birds' hearts, right? They want to improve the lives of their employees and the community. So they are fast friends. In fact, Anna, this is a tangent, sorry, I'll be quick. But Anna gets all the students in Norfolk County to do an essay contest planning a town of the future. And there were like over 8,000 essays that were submitted for that. All right, back on topic. That's a boost. Yeah, so anyhow, they're fast friends, and Nolan goes on to work on many projects here in Walpole for the municipality, but also for the Bird family specifically. Nolan, in his career, spends some of his time in England. This is before he came to Walpole. And in England, he comes across this planning method, this design model. It's called the Garden City Movement. And he loves this idea because it combines the best of country and town living. So you have these wonderful green spaces, these natural spaces that you would find in the country, combined with all these wonderful, conveniences. It had a park called Francis William, but it was for the father of Charles Sumner instead of his son. A tangent again. So, but things change. The costs increase, the economy changes, and then there's the absolute tragic loss of Francis William. And this changes the Byrds' idea and to use this land instead as a memorial park in memory of their son. And I have to say though, they still had their employees and the community in mind, because they purposefully designed it to incorporate different New England landscapes, because at the time people are not taking their families on vacation here or there to see the different sites. New England meadow, New England pond, and even New England seaside, which I will talk about more later. You could have performances on the front out for very large events like there. Mike mentioned the one that was by Walcott Ave. And so where the playgrounds have been has changed over time. It's been here, I think probably for the longest amount of time, and I can tell you, this is the most popular playground in the area, hands down.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for moving my stuff.
A combination of broad, sun-swept meadowlands, speckled with shadowed glades, higher tree-screened knolls for the lover of shade, the whole set to the music of a babbling stream. So here's the babbling stream that goes through the whole park. It's called Pickerel Brook, and it connects to Trap Hole Brook, which happens to have the state's healthiest population of freshwater trout, FYI. That goes to the Neponset, and then the Neponset to actually Quincy, where I live. So yes, I'm connected to the park very distantly. Turn around, they can see some cement, like a platform with some steps to the right there. Does everyone see that? It has a picnic table on the right side of it. So what you're looking at there is what's left of what on the edges. Seashells were on the sand. It was intended to mimic a New England seaside experience. It is cement on the bottom of this.
But he was the only, he did it on the Progressive Party. He was the only third party. He was the only third party to come in the history of giving trail races.
Happened is that people kept stealing the plants because it was a Japanese garden, and they. But back then it was like these things, Japanese garden.
Oh, I love it. What's that?
Criticize those who did.